Hello there, my fellow myth and fantasy nerds. My name is Tanner, and I'd like to welcome you back to my YouTube channel. Why, yes, as a matter of fact, I did give myself a haircut recently. It was admittedly getting a bit too long, so I decided to, trim it down for the time being. Now that we're up to speed, today's video will be the fifth installment of my series where I introduce you to the D&D characters that I've created but have not played yet. As mentioned in my previous videos, linked to the playlist up in the cards and in the description down below, I decided to break this series down by character race, or species, or ancestry, or whatever you prefer. And for this week, I'll be going over my Genasi characters. Now, for those of you who aren't in the know, Genasi are essentially a race of beings that are quite similar to Ozimar, except instead of being descended from celestials like Ozimar are, Genasi are descended from beings of the four elemental planes, usually genies. They tend to look like their non-genie ancestry, so human or elven or dwarven or half-orc or what have you, except for certain features that belie their ties to the specific elemental planes, such as unusual skin coloration and certain manifestations of their specific element, such as being constantly surrounded by a light breeze, constantly dripping water, a higher than normal body temperature, or even a constant layer of dirt just falling off their bodies. Also, they may start out with names from their non elemental ancestry, but will also choose a name based on their specific element, such as gust, onyx, wave, or pyre, for example. So make sure that you leave a like on this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe down below, since that always helps. And without further ado, allow me to introduce to you the first character in the fifth group of D&D characters that I've created. Ahoy there, Neptune! Ahoy there, Tanner! And ahoy to you, me hearties! My name is Osir Blueaver, and I am a water genasi bard. But please, call me Neptune, all me mates do. Now my story begins at sea, on the legendary ship known as the Rose Dragon. Now I never knew me true parents, but I was raised by the co-captains of the legendary ship and her crew. Now the crew of the Rose Dragon were legendary for behaving akin to your Robin Hood and his merry men, pillaging and plundering from other far less honourable pirates, and distributing the treasure to the needy and less fortunate. Our ship and her crew were legendary, and stories and rumours of us spread like wildfire. Now I myself left on good terms in order to start adventuring, and I've been wandering the world ever since. Now, Tanner's plan, once he plays me to the correct level, of course, is for me to become a College of Swords bard, similar to Junkanyalaf from the Dragonborn video. Now, Tanner sees this fitting since, I come from a pirate background and all that. Now, my highest score is obviously going to be my Charisma, which in my case is at an 18. However, on the other hand, my worst score is actually not my strength this time, but my wisdom at 10. As for my alignment, I tend towards the chaotic good alignment. I may be a pirate with a free spirit, but I do have a good heart. At least, I think I do. Anyway, it was a pleasure to make your acquaintance, of course. And now I will pass it over to the next character. Oi, Quartz! Ugh, what is it, Neptune? Oh, hey there. My name is Wilfred Crystalspell. My friends call me Quartz. And like with the others you're gonna meet, I'm also a Genasi. Specifically, an Earth Genasi. However, unlike Neptune back there, I'm not a bard, but a warlock. And my backstory, to be perfectly honest, could not be any more different from his. You see, I've lived on my own for years. I was orphaned as a baby, and the people at the orphanage that I used to live at told me that my mother only lived long enough to give me a name. The only other thing she left me is a small ring with a polished brown stone. Now, for a while, the people of the orphanage treated me well, or at least about as well as all the other orphans there. But then, when the others and I grew older, and as people came and went, one day something happened. I'm not sure what, and the orphanage was destroyed. I was one of only a few survivors, but we were without a home. Now, the other survivors and I decided to stick together, as really we were the only family we ever knew. We prowled the streets and the alleys, sometimes begging for food or money, sometimes taking a few odd jobs here and there, and sometimes even stealing a few small things. One night, I couldn't sleep. I went to my favorite thinking place, and thought. So, as I was thinking, I started fiddling with my ring, seeing if I could make it, do something. When all of a sudden, a small compartment opened under the brown crystal, and a large dust storm appeared out of the compartment. It coalesced into a large, imposing woman, with skin the color of freshly tilled soil, hair like a sandstorm spun into being, and eyes that sparkled like diamonds. She revealed to me that I was a Genasi, and that she was my genie ancestor. Then and there we made a warlock pact with each other. She would give me warlock magic, and I would find and collect other family treasures of ours, the ring being the first one I ever had. I've been out and about exploring the world ever since. Now, when you factor in the ability score increases that we get as Genasi, my charisma is actually not my strongest score, but my constitution is at 15. On the other hand, my worst score is actually a tie between my strength, my intelligence, and my wisdom, all of which are at 7. Now, as mentioned previously, my patron is a genie, specifically a Dao, which is essentially a genie that's specifically tied to the elemental plane of Earth. My ring is my arcane focus, and when Tanner plays me, he plans on us going with Pact of the Chain, in which my patron will give me a familiar, which in this case will take the form of a brown pseudo-dragon, basically a dragon the size of a house cat, that appears to have crystalline growths on his back and head. When this happens, I will give him the name of Ore, as in, like, metal ore. Also, unlike Neptune, my alignment is not chaotic good, but neutral good. Look over there. It's the next character Tanner wants to meet. Hey, Blaze! What? What is it, Quartz? I'm trying to practice here. Oh, my apologies. I didn't see you. My name is Darhag Zraheth, and as with the others in this video, I am a Genasi, specifically a fire Genasi. Please, call me Blaze. However, in my case, I am a sorcerer, specifically a draconic bloodline sorcerer. My backstory is actually quite similar to Michael that you met a couple videos ago, except for the fact that my father is not an Aasimar bard who married a dragonborn monk, but a fire genasi bard who married a dragonborn monk. However, everything else is the same. My parents are/were retired adventurers who taught me everything they knew, from magic to combat to what have you. And when I wanted to follow in their footsteps and go on adventures of my own someday, my parents supported me and told them I'd be welcome to visit any time. I've been wandering the world, sending them messages and letters of my adventures ever since. Now, being both a sorcerer and a genasi, after you factor in the ability score increases you get from being a genasi, my highest scores are actually a tie between my charisma and my constitution, both of which are at 16. So, not too shabby if I do say so myself. On the other claw, my worst scores are also a tie between my strength and my wisdom, both of which are at 11. Also, like Neptune, my alignment is chaotic good rather than neutral good. Anyway, it was a pleasure to meet you, but I should probably get back to practicing and should send you over to the next character. Hey, Torch. Uh, Torch? Hey, Torch! Ah! What? Oh. Blaze, what have I told you about scaring me like that? You know how easily startled I am. Hello, I'm Origal. Origal Ambrook, and I'm a Fire Genasi Druid. But you can call me Torch. All my friends do. Now, my story is really eerily similar to the other druids you've met so far, due to the fact that I was from a druidic village that was destroyed by a dragon. And like the majority of the other druids you've met and will meet, it was a rampaging, ice breathing, white dragon. Now, like with the others, Tanner has not yet played me, but he does plan on making me a Circle of Wildfire druid once it gets to the correct level. Now, for multiple reasons, this is quite fitting. Mainly the fact that A, I'm a fire genasi, and B, I'm going up against an ice breathing white dragon. Ugh. Also, as with most of the other genasi you've met and will meet, I am chaotic good. Now, when you factor in the ability score increases that I get as a genasi, my highest score is my constitution at 17. But my lowest score is my strength at 9. Yeah, admittedly, I'm rather scrawny. Anyway, it was very nice to meet you, but like with my fellow druids, I'll need to commune with nature since I find that very calming. Uh, Deluge, you mind taking over from here? Oh, aye, of course I will, Torch. Ahoy there! My name is Comnos Lubosnath, and I am a water genasi wizard. But please, call me Deluge. Now, my story is actually similar to Neptune, what with being raised the son of two pirate captains, whose crew essentially acted like the Robin Hood of the sea. However, there were some treasures that my parents let me keep. Now, these mainly were things like books and scrolls, since they had discovered early on that I was interested in learning magic. Now, I taught myself as much as I could, and I used what I learned to help my family and the crew. That is, until I left to seek my own fortunes. Now, as a wizard, my highest score is going to be my intelligence, since that is where we get our magic from, at 17. On the other hand, my worst score is, once again, my strength at 9. Now, like with most of my fellow Genasi characters, I am of the chaotic good alignment, and Tanner's intent, as soon as he plays me, is to specialize as a school of conjuration wizard as soon as I get to the appropriate level. Now, what this means is that I will specialize in spells that allow me to produce objects and even creatures out of thin air. Anywho, it was a pleasure to make your acquaintance, me hearties. However, we've got to round off this here cast of characters, and I think I know just the Genasi. Oi, Storm! I hear someone questioning your courage. Gotta go. Let me at him. Let me at him. Oh, sorry if I scared you. I'm Mooger. Mooger Fulgox. My friends call me Storm. Once again, I am also a Genasi, specifically an air Genasi. However, I am a Genasi barbarian. My story begins pretty much the same as Neptune and Deluge, with me being a part of a Robin Hood type pirate crew until I left to seek my own fortune. Now, once again, since Tanner has not played me yet, I do not have a character level. But the plan is when he eventually does play me, I will take the barbarian path of Storm Herald when I reach the right level. What this means is my rage, unlike most barbarians, who gain enhanced strength, durability, and speed, my rage will manifest as a swirling aura of primal nature magic, which takes the form of a storm of some kind or another. Now, my base score is my constitution at 16, and once again, my worst scores are my dexterity and my wisdom at 7. And of course, my alignment is chaotic good like most of the others. Anyway, I think it's high time Tanner wrap up here. Oi, Tanner, wrap it up! Storm, what have I told you and most of the other barbarians? Just because you are a barbarian does not mean you have to be so stinking aggressive. Honestly, this guy. Anyway, and there we have it. That was the 5th set of D&D characters that I've created but have not played yet. If you liked this video and you want more, please leave it a like and subscribe down below so you don't miss any new ones. Also, if there are any other ideas you want to see in future videos, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and who knows, it might just happen. Alright, well, that's all the time I have for this video, so I'll see y'all next week with a brand new one. See you guys then.